Hi everybody, Bill De La Cruz here, and today I want to talk to you about the three most famous or infamous letters of the alphabet. And those three letters are D, E, and I. The reason why they're famous from my perspective is they stand for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a process of facilitation that I have been doing for over 20 years of my career, and have had really great success in engaging people from all different ideological perspectives in having a conversation about what it means to honor diversity, to be equitable, and to create spaces of inclusion. So I first want to start with the definitions of these letters. So diversity just basically means all of the ways that we identify. So they're all of the intersectionalities of our identity, from age to race to religion to anything that a person looks at as their identity. And there are things that are seen and things that are not seen. So that is the definition of diversity. Equity is about meeting the needs of people and providing them with resources for opportunity, access, and inclusion. So it's more about a process of differentiating. And what differentiation means is that we provide different resources to different people to have the same level of success in whatever they're doing, whether it's in education, whether it's in leadership development, access to resources, and so it's really about a process. And most organizations and institutions are already differentiating, and so they're already doing equity work and equity outcomes for opportunity, access, and inclusion. It's just not being called that. And then inclusion is just this idea that I can feel a sense of value and acceptance in whatever organization that I'm involved in, whether it's a school, a workplace, a church, an organization, a homeowners group, a community group. And so I think the three letters, DEI, are famous because they provide us an opportunity to be able to have challenging conversations about how certain groups, because of their identity, do not have opportunity, access, or inclusion, and don't have the ability to achieve their goals, whatever they are, rooted in education, leadership, growth, development. It doesn't matter what it is. And so now I'm going to switch to the infamous, which is the way that those three letters have been politicized. And I think that's really challenging, because when a high-level politician says something, people listen to it, and if they're not checking their resources, they look at what is being said as truth. And so it's been happening for so many years, and I finally have decided that I can't sit idly by without speaking to the impact of these words. And I'm going to read a quote that is from Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, who was at a ceremony. And it says, during the ceremony, DeSantis shared, "If you look at the way this has actually been implemented across the country, DEI is better viewed as standing for discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination." And so I want to speak to that, because while that may be his perspective, it's rooted in his own experiences. And I don't know if the governor has ever spoken to somebody like me who has done this work for over 20 years. And I can tell you I've never been accused of discriminating, being exclusive, or indoctrinating in the 20 plus years that I've been facilitating this work all over the country to all types of people from every ideological, political, and identity perspective that you can imagine, from police officers to fire departments, to educators, to doctors, to just regular community people who want to know more about how biases, judgments, and stereotypes impact our interactions with each other. And when that has come up, I've reached out to those folks and had a conversation with them because I wanted to understand what is it about the way I presented my approach that led you to believe I was being discriminatory or I was being exclusive. And so I have to approach this the same way because I can't just hear somebody talk about a perspective without engaging with them. Because I know behind everyone's perspective, there's a story, and it doesn't matter what your role or title is. If I approach this from a humanistic perspective, it means that I have to reach out and hear the story of that person. And I think especially from a political perspective, as a former elected official, I served on a school board in Colorado for 6 years. My role was to represent every single person in the 500 square mile school district that I was elected in. And that meant people who shared my perspective and people who did not share my perspective. And so I think that our political leaders must be held to a higher standard for that reason. And so in being in integrity with myself, if that would have happened to me in a workshop, I would have invited that person into a conversation. So I'm going to do the same thing here. And so to Governor Ron DeSantis, if you're listening to this or if someone's sharing it with you, I would love to invite you to have a conversation with me because the experience of people being excluded and discriminated in this work sadly is not rare. In fact, I worked with a group just last week where a white male told me that in the last DEI training that he went to, the facilitator actually told him that you are the problem because you're a white male. And he was so appreciative that that was not my perspective, that he was fully engaged and wanted to learn more about his own biases, judgments, and stereotypes. So I'm not denying that that is a reality, that there are practitioners in this work who are going out there and dehumanizing and demeaning people and telling white men especially that you are the problem because of your race. I'm just not one of those facilitators. And I would love to have a conversation with you, Governor DeSantis, to not only hear your story, I also would like you to meet somebody who has done this work very successfully for a number of years so that you can understand that not everybody who does DE&I work fits your description. And so maybe I can shift your stereotype or your bias just a little bit if you meet with me and have a conversation with me about your perspective, because I'm really curious to understand your story. So I will meet you anywhere on my own dime, and I would love to have a conversation with you so that you can understand that for a practitioner like myself, DE&I work is really work that drives us into deeper conversations that leads to more heart connection and leads to relationship building in a way that allows us to come to a culture of acceptance, to realize that we're not going to agree on everything. And I don't want to have a conversation with you so that you agree with me or to change your mind or to tell you you're right or wrong. I want to have a conversation with you to understand your perspective and for you to meet at least one person that is doing this work with fidelity, with integrity, and with the hope of making the world a more humane place. So my invitation to Governor Ron DeSantis is to reach out to me. Let me know when you would like to have this conversation, and I will happily come to you and talk about the 3 most famous or infamous letters of the alphabet, DE&I. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your openness. And for everybody out there listening, remember, keep growing.